Okay, it's 5 after 7. Let's get this meeting going. Roll call, please.
Weir,
Here.
Passanello,
Present.
Vader, Larson,
Here.
Schneider,
Here.
Ramirez, here, Morris,
Here.
All right, next on the item, let's do the Pledge of Allegiance. We have the Scouts of America here, Troop 924. If they could lead the pledge, that'd be great.
Please all join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge
Allegiance
to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, guys.
Sean, is that somebody I recognize here? There's two of them.
Yeah. Just hidden by the masks. Next on the agenda, we got the invocation. Tonight we have Pastor Alan Smith from the Haymarket Baptist Church. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. Let us pray. Creator God, for the beauty of the earth we give you thanks. For the peace which dwells in our hearts, we give you thanks. For the ways in which you continue to bring light into the world, we give you thanks. For the town of Haymarket, for its leadership, and for the people who make up this community, we give you thanks. We ask that you be with us during this meeting. Give us patience and discernment in our discussion. Give us a listening ear as we learn from one another. And in all things, let us remember the ways that you provide for us each and every day. Let us go forward with hearts of gratitude and thanksgiving, particularly in this season. For it is in thy holy name that we pray. Amen.
Thank you, and thanks for coming in and doing this for us. Next on the agenda, we got the Haymarket Day recap.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'll keep the recap a little brief right now since we do have a lot on the agenda. In general, it was a great day, despite the rain. We couldn't have forecasted it, but it all worked out, and we're very thankful for everyone who came out, our vendors, the citizens, the community. But I especially want to send a special thank you out to all of those who helped us. So, countless hours of planning and preparation go into this one-day event, and without the help of our community volunteers, we wouldn't be able to make it possible. These individuals show up days in advance and work till the very end, from early morning vendor setup to breakdown and trash cleanup. It's never a clean job, that is for sure, but they always stick through it with us. We greatly appreciate your service for Haymarket Day, and thank you so much for all you do. So a special thank you to our Longstreet Commons crew. Year after year, they are always here, so I'd just like to name them off. We have Chuck Carnahan, Brett McLaughlin, Ben Barbin, Tony Gomez, Diego Gomez, Wilbur Sharik, John Guttrell, Chris Morris, Marchant Schneider, and Devin. So thank you all very much for all of your hard work. Next, I would like to take a few moments. If the troop would like to step up, that would be wonderful. So we would like to pass on a very special thank you to Troop 924 for everything that they did this year at Haymarket Day. Troop 924 went above and beyond our expectations and truly knocked it out of the park. At Haymarket Day this year, I witnessed the true meaning of a scout. Individuals who are trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. I greatly appreciate all of the hard work the Scouts put in on Haymarket Day. In the early morning, they diligently worked to assist vendors set up, monitor the trash pickup duties, and then in our desperate time, the Scouts stepped up and helped the community pack up in the pouring rain and never stopped smiling through it. I think you guys also splashed puddles at each other, and that was comical to watch. I'm glad you guys had fun. So for everything that you guys did, we thank you. Your hard work was noticed, and we appreciate all that you do to assist us. A very special thank you to your leaders. Sorry if I mispronounced names. John Nagashima, Eden Porter, Jan Hermanson, Jacob Hoffman, Allison Hermanson. Thank you so much, and please accept this donation check for your summer camp and any of your activities that you guys do this coming year. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
We'll see you guys back next year. Thank you. And then last but not least, I would like to extend a very big thank you to Park Valley Church and Steve Pierce. Over the past several years, Park Valley Church has partnered with the town for our events and the Kids Zone activities. Park Valley has graciously donated time and resources to help make our visions come true for our children's activities at the events and much more. For each event, the town partners with Park Valley for the moon bounce and the obstacle course rentals. The church goes above and beyond to provide the very best for the event and staff the activities to take the burden off of our town staff. We cannot thank you enough for your generous donations to our town. Our community expands far beyond the half-square-mile boundaries, and we are proud to partner with Park Valley to better serve our community and town. Thank you so much for all you do, and please accept this check on behalf of the town. Is there anybody here from Park Valley? We will mail the check to them and make sure it gets to them. So I just wanted to take a moment and thank all of our community members for all of their hard work. It was a very successful Haymarket Day, even though we had to end early. And a special thank you to all of our council members who showed up and were able to walk in the parade, but also be here at 5:30 in the morning to help with vendor setup and everything else. So thank you guys so much, and we look forward to planning our next one.
Good job.
Good job.
Good job.
And also, I feel we need to recognize our town staff for the hard work that they've done. Not only that, there has been contributions by some town staff family members who have not been recognized, and I think they need to be recognized. I saw your mom; she was barking orders to me every once in a while, but I didn't see your dad. I think he was around though, wasn't he?
Snuck away to North Carolina.
Ah.
Not this year. Yes,
You only
but
But-
thank you. I will
orders to
pass that on to
disobedient
them.
ones.
And we appreciate the effort that you put into this, staff and town members and community members. Thank you again.
Wasn't attorney there, sir? Was the town attorney there? Wasn't? Just messing with you, man.
Okay, now we need to move on to the public hearings. We'll go with the first public hearing, which is the budget amendment. Let's start off with the public notice. Who gets to read it?
Do we have one here? I don't have a copy of it. Is it on the website? Is it on the website? We're under public, under alerts and notifications or public notices? That's 2019, where is it? Public notice for first quarter budget amendment, is it? I got it.
We're getting it.
I got it, I think. You want me to read it in, Mr. Mayor?
Yep.
Notice of public hearing, Town of Haymarket, fiscal year 2021-22, amendment to the adopted budget. Haymarket Town Council will hold a public hearing on Monday, November 1st, 2021, beginning at 7 p.m. at the Haymarket Town Hall, 1500 Washington Street, number 100, Haymarket, Virginia, 20169, and/or at such other times as to which such hearing may be continued. To consider amending the FY 2021-22 budget as summarized below. The amendment will now increase the adopted operating budget for fiscal year 2021 through 2022 by $412,528 and appropriate $1,738,878 in the other income budget to recognize the ARPA funds. The new overall adopted budget with these increases will be $4,547,821. The proposed budget amendments are available for public review both online at www.townofhaymarket.org and in the clerk's office at 1500 Washington Street, number 100, Haymarket, Virginia 20169.
Okay, so we open it up for citizens' comments. Do we have a list?
I don't have anybody on for the public hearing.
Any emails? No emails either for this one? Okay. Anybody in the audience waiting to comment for the budget amendment? Okay. Well, I guess that was a quick meeting to close up on. Now we'll move on to the public hearing 2 for the zoning text amendments.
Crosby has that.
Okay, we'll go for a public notice reading.
It's a big one. Give me a minute. It's gonna take a minute to get through.
Okay. Notice is hereby given that the Town Council for the Town of Haymarket will hold a public hearing on Monday, November 1st, 2021 at 7 p.m. in the Haymarket Town Hall located at 15,000 Washington Street, Suite 100, Haymarket, Virginia, regarding the adoption of general and comprehensive amendments to the zoning and subdivision ordinance and related maps, Chapter 58 of the Town Code. The proposed amendments update the entire code, changing numerous provisions in every zone, changing definitions, affecting many substantive and procedural portions of the chapter, modifying the old and historic Haymarket overlay district's boundaries, and adding a sign zoning map. Substantive changes include restating the purpose provisions, expressly stating that use is not permitted or forbidden, modifying the descriptions of the various zoning districts, changing the height limit from 50 feet 4 stories to 35 feet 3 stories in the B1 zoning district, changing the height limit from 50 feet to 35 feet in the B2 zoning district, eliminating the provision for heights over 50 feet by special use permit in the B2 and the I1, increasing the maximum buildable lot coverage in the B2 from 75 to 80%, revising the purpose and intent of the old and historic Haymarket overlay district, rewriting the provisions on non-conforming uses, structures, and lots, encouraging the use of native plants in required landscaping areas, imposing the responsibility for infrastructure maintenance on the property owner if an HOA fails to enact after notice, limiting stacking spaces for drive-ins, creating design standards affecting the location, size, and physical characteristics of residential short-term rentals and solar energy systems, providing for a maximum fence height of 6 feet in the R1 and R2, requiring sewer connections for new structures in the B1, prohibiting heavy industry that generates high levels of noise, odor, soot, or vibration, or that requires special power lines in the I1 district, revising parking requirements and limiting historic landmarks to only those resources built prior to 1950. Definition changes include repealing unused definitions, adding a definition of data center, which is not permitted anywhere in the town, adding a definition of marijuana establishment, which is permitted in the business and industrial zones, adding a definition of mobile food unit, which is permitted in all zones under specific conditions, adding definitions of domestic chickens and honeybees as permitted as accessory uses subject to use and design standards in the R1 district on parcels of 1 acre or larger, adding a definition of residential short-term rentals permitted in the R1 and R2 districts, adding a definition of public assembly, which includes religious assemblies, and adding definitions related to solar energy systems. The chapter amendments also change the procedural elements of Chapter 58, providing procedures for special use permit consideration, changing the requirements for preliminary and final site plans, adding a requirement for posting a property proposed to be rezoned, providing for a meeting before applying for a rezoning or special use permit, providing standards for determining whether a rezoning or special use permit application is complete, expanding the conditions expanding the requirements for amendments to the zoning ordinance, adding provisions relating to the general development plans and master zoning plans, expanding provisions dealing with conditional zoning, removing civil penalties as an enforcement tool, requiring notice to the zoning administrator of temporary signs, revising the provisions dealing with the historic preservation, providing a method of verification of non-conforming uses, structures, and lots, and providing approval processes for the residential short-term rentals and solar energy systems. The proposed amendments create a table showing the by right and special exception uses in each of the zoning districts. The proposed amendments change the permitted uses in the zoning districts due to the definition changes, due to the removal of public assembly use from residential districts, and due to the removal of brewery/distillery use from the transitional commercial district. In addition, the town proposes amendments to the zoning map consisting of 1, reducing the size of the old and historic Haymarket overlay district, and 2, adding a zoning overlay map with 3 districts to govern the size, material, placement, and illumination of flags, banners, and other signs. Gateway district consisting of properties generally along Route 15 and western portions of Route 55. Core district consisting of non-residential properties along Route 55, not in the Gateway district, and residential consisting of the remainder of the town. The ordinance draft is available on the town's website and for review at the town hall located at 15,000 Washington Street between the hours of 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. Monday through Friday. Phone 703-753-2600. All meetings are open to the public. The town of Haymarket does not discriminate on the basis of disability and admissions or access to its programs and activities. Location of this public hearing is believed to be accessible to persons with disabilities. Any person with questions on the accessibility of the facility should contact town clerk at the above address or by telephone. And if you wish to comment.
Could you repeat that? No.
So with that, I do have a brief presentation that I would like to go through for the zoning ordinance. It's going to cover some of those items that we just read out in the public hearing notice for the meeting. So Kim, if you will give me 1 second to turn on the PowerPoint. Martin, don't let this blind you.
Too many remotes. Yeah, probably should.
You want to get it, Marcia?
Like how you delegated that.
Since you're up, since you're standing.
Maybe someone should go to.
Someone on the closer side of the dais, right?
Huh?
Nope. There you go.
You want to fall asleep?
You'd have to move the table back if you do that.
Okay, so our first article was our introduction to the zoning ordinance. What we did here was just some general cleanup. We took care of the section uses not specified or prohibited, and we added this text you see here. I'm going to just, since this is the presentation of the public hearing, I'm just going to go through the slides, and then during our discussion, if you guys have in-depth questions about each article, we can get into them then. Article 2, definitions. We gave the definitions their very own section in the beginning. Our old ordinance had them in the other articles, so we have moved them out. We've cleaned this up, and we have added several new definitions. Any unused definitions were taken out, and then other definitions were edited for clarity purposes. Article 3, this article is the review and approval procedures, so we have gone through and done many modifications to this. Specifically, we have gone through and edited some of the special uses. I wanted to call out, as this was a question during our work session, that the traffic study requirement waiver language, as you see here on the screen, has been added. We can go back into further discussion of that later on. And then we have incorporated DEQ recommendations that were products of our audit earlier this year. The amendments, this entire article has been updated and replaced with new text. The enforcement, we have worked on the enforcement article to reference the state code. Provisions for appeal. We do have a section that we need to add back in there. It was just a quick line that was missed, so this is going to be one of the edits that I recommend, and that's simply stating this first section here, Board of Zoning Appeals generally, a Board of Zoning Appeals, BZA, consisting of 5 members, shall be appointed by the Circuit Court of the county. That was inadvertently left off of our new draft. The other items stay the same. Off-street parking, again, this is something we briefly discussed at our work session, so we have removed the old section on shared parking. That was item B in the old text. We have added a modification that spaces may be located as far as 750 feet away, and we have updated so that all parking surfaces are considered to be all-weather, but they exclude gravel. This allows for our developers to use other permeable paver options or permeable concrete. Next. We have, instead of listing out each of the uses in the different zoning ordinance, zoning district sections, we have changed it so it's one single use chart. And this is in the beginning of the zoning districts being broken down. I do have just a general housekeeping edit to carry the header over to each page, making it a little bit more user-friendly. The next article, we're at R1 zoning district. Again, the use is removed to the use chart. Residential parking has been modified, and I will be working a little bit more with the chief on updating this first bullet point regarding different stipulations of recreational vehicles and commercial vehicles and the storage of inoperable vehicles. We have added in that fences, the maximum height is 6 feet, and we have removed the occupancy regulations, but the definition of family has been updated to dictate the occupancy. Next. R2, very similar modifications have been made. The TC, we have updated it again with the use chart and removed the occupancy regulations. The B1, same thing here, and we also added in that connections to the sewer system are required for new development. Very similar modifications in the B2. And the I1, we excluded some of the heavy industrial uses, and the occupancy regulations were removed. Conservation, after discussion with the Planning Commission, all uses were removed. Next. Old and Historic Overlay, we have added a small definition section specific to this article, the goals, and also the boundaries. We have set a year of 1950 or prior to be considered historic. Signs, we've modified the article to include the definitions in the article. This takes a big chunk of our previous definition section and puts it in the article it's directly related to. We have updated the sign map to redefine the Gateway Sign District and the Core District, as well as updated sign dimensions for the different districts. As you read it in the current ordinance, it's broken up by the different zoning districts on what kind of sign you can do. In the new ordinance, what we're proposing is a table specifically for the gateway and a table specifically for the core to try to separate it and keep it a little bit more clear for the users.
Emily, could you go back to the one previous slide? I don't have a question. I just wanted to check something real quick. To the historic one.
Yes.
One more.
Next, one more.
That one.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. We've updated language throughout the non-conforming use article just to keep consistent with the other changes that we've made. Next. Landscaping, we were lacking a portion on transitional commercial zoning districts. This has been added to the different buffering and landscape buffers required. And we've also updated our vegetation requirements to ensure that everything is native to Virginia. Next item. Infrastructure, we do have one recommended update, and that is to include the sidewalk section that we had already discussed in great detail regarding the provision for stamped concrete. This was inadvertently missed when we put together our first draft, so we can go back over that during our discussion. Use and design standards, specifically we have added regulating sections on microbreweries, honeybees, chickens, and solar energy. There was some concern with growing fads regarding honeybees and chickens, so we wanted to ensure that this was regulated in this section. And lastly, subdivisions we've not altered at this time. So that is a brief synopsis on what the proposed updates for the Haymarket zoning ordinance are to date. And if there's any public comments, we can open that up at this time. And Mayor, I have one email to read into the record.
Okay.
I will go ahead and...
We'll begin public comments then. Please start with the
Okay.
email.
Members of the Town Council, we would like to be on the record as strongly endorsing the 35-foot height limit, which is a part of the R2 zoning text amendment being considered tonight. The character of Haymarket has been radically altered with the building heights allowed for the new hotel and for some other buildings. We are pleased that the Planning Commission devoted so much time to improving the zoning amendment. We hope that the passage of this zoning text amendment with its 35-foot limit will prevent further erosion of Haymarket's character and historical look. Thank you for your consideration of our view. Maureen and Jim Carroll, 6862 Track Court, Haymarket. That's the only email I have.
Okay. Do we have a list of, no list? Okay, anybody in the audience want to speak towards the zoning text amendments?
Jim Payne, 6680 Fayette Street. I'm up here just to kind of object to the, I know there's a lot to digest in that ZTA, but I'm just going to speak about the height requirement. Currently, yes, it's 50 feet. To move down to 35 feet, that's going to affect a lot of the businesses, the business that maybe have bought Lane Motors, or that might be the QBE. Right now, you have to have a certain area for parking. I don't know exactly the formula. I'm sure Marchant might know it off the top of his head, but you have to devote that area just for parking. And I think what I heard, you're trying to increase the green space. So basically, you're limiting what the business can do with their own real estate. And it's not easy to get something in Haymarket. I don't know if you guys have ever done a commercial building, but it's not easy. So you're further reducing the revenue that a business can really generate. They're going to have basically more green space. They can't go up as high. So it's really dissuading businesses to really even come here. I mean, why would they? I mean, they can go right over the 15 to Prince William. So I urge you guys to really think about this. Yes, we don't want to get, the big box stores and whatnot in here. We do have the hotel. It's already 50 feet on one side. The hotel's there. It's almost built. Then to have something else at 35, and is it fair to the people maybe that have bought different properties and they think that they can do something and do the build, and now find out that, oh no, I'm sorry, you can't. You're going to have to either sell or go out of business, or sell to another developer that might be able to do something else with it. So I strongly suggest you guys to maybe just give that a second look, just look at all views of that, and I do thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jim, for your comments. Anyone else in the audience? Okay, I guess we'll close up the comments and close the public hearing for the zoning text amendments and move on to closing all the hearings up. Okay, that opens up for citizens' time of our regular town meeting. Do I have anybody who wants to comment for citizens' time of our regular meeting?
Jim Payne, my address and stuff's on record. Everybody knows who I am. I just wanted to comment about, I was thinking about, and actually I did speak to one of your officers, and it's a good idea for maybe, they do business checks, and I understand that, but maybe for the businesses to have a box outside that could be for fire and rescue, that if they needed to get in, and I think he called it a knock box. I don't understand all the details of it, but I think that might be a good idea since they do perform business checks, and we have a key, like, they have like a Allen key. To lock the door, you can't really do it from if you don't have that key. So something that, maybe the, professionals, either law enforcement or fire, could utilize. I mean, that might be something for, the council to look at. I'm just thinking, since they do offer that service, which really nobody else does, to maybe that might, help augment and make that a little bit better since they are spending the time to go and do the check. And if they can't really lock the door, it would kind of be nice if they could do that too. And I'm sure it would have to be, serialized, and I'm sure there's a secure way to do that. I don't know. I'm sure, the chief or one of the officers would know better than I. But I just want to bring that to your attention to maybe look at in the future. Thank you.
Okay, thank you again, Jim. Anyone else? Nope. Okay, we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is the consent agenda. Is there any reports that you want to pull out from the consent agenda?
Could we pull the town planner and police department, please?
Okay, I got two being pulled. I guess, do you want to close up the consent agenda or do that afterwards, after these two are pulled out?
Mr. Mayor, I would move adoption of consent agenda items A, 1 through 3, B, 1, 2, 5, and 6, and C, 1 through 5.
Second.
Okay, you got a motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Didn't hear your voice, Marshall. Okay. Okay, so we'll start off then with 9B3, the town planner report.
No.
Go ahead and ask questions.
Okay, sure. So I just wanted to highlight on page 21, it talks about the farmers market, open weekly. And I just want to confirm with Emily, one, the end date is November 21st, correct?
Yes, that is correct for the current market that runs on Sundays.
Okay, perfect. And then I did receive an email from one of the farmer market vendors that I forwarded to Emily and Tracy Lynn being our business liaison, seeing if he would get permission to do pre-order drop-offs here where they typically do farmers market on Sundays because they're going to be driving through anyways. So I just wanted to bring that up for everybody, see if anybody has any opposition or anything that I can follow up with him or Emily follow up with him.
I think just one quick point to add. I think this is a great idea. It allows our vendors who are able to continue providing for their customers and keeping the interest during the winter months so that when we reopen in the spring, they haven't lost customer base that they're working hard to gain back.
Now, my understanding of the pre-order drop-off is there's a pre-order and then they pretty much have them set in their tent ready to drop off. They're not dropping it off for us to distribute,
Correct.
right?
Right. They would come and they would set a designated possibly hour or 2 hours that they would sit in the parking lot and they would meet their customers for pickups. but it would be an order placed either the week prior or during the week, maybe by phone or email.
All vendor-based from my understanding.
Yep.
So what would it look like if they come and set up their tents? Or that would not be allowed, or how could it be controlled?
In the past, we have typically just closed the market towards the middle to end of November due to just the colder months. Sometimes it's a lot harder to retain vendors during those months because of weather. It's a little hit or miss, so we've closed it. If they wanted to come and set up a tent, we would just operate it the same as we do now. There would be a lot fewer vendors, though. A lot of them would not want to commit to every Sunday through the winter months. It tends to be their off-season.
So my question is, what would it look like? Right now, we have 7 vendors that's out there that really looks like a farmer's market. What would it look like if you had 1 or 2 each Sunday that comes out and set up? Is that what we want the farmer's market to look like?
I don't think we would be advertising it as a farmer's market. It would simply be a pickup, or it would be a pickup location. So in this case, it would just truly be 1 or 2 vendors. It would look like 1 or 2 vendors, and they wouldn't be set up all day as a farmer's market.
We would essentially be facilitating
Yeah.
more or less between the vendor and the purchaser, I guess.
That's true, but, knowing these vendors would probably, I mean, if I was a vendor, I would want to set up and carry some extra items with me. So I'm just thinking, would we shoot ourselves in the foot by having something that don't really look like a farmer's market, but we're accommodating it? I'm just asking a question just in case. Like this past Sunday, it looked like a farmer's market. You had a truck there, and then you had 6 other tents, 5 tents on a trailer that were there that looked like a farmer's market. But if we're going to allow them to come and set up 2 persons, 2 tents, is that going to affect what we're trying to make it look like?
So we can certainly reach out and ask all the vendors if they would like to continue the season. And maybe it's not every weekend, but maybe we just go ahead and place a set schedule. And taking the holidays into account, we set a schedule for 2 Sundays a month. And then those who want to do pickups, they still get their 2 Sundays a month to sell their other products and do pickups.
Or we could always just limit it to pre-orders only. We could ask them not to do like the whole tent setup as well. They could probably just have a table just for the pre-orders.
I just know for me personally, if I drive by 2 weeks, 3 weeks consecutively and see something that look not well organized with 1 tent, maybe 2, that would drive me not to come back to this farmer's market. So, I'm just saying it so we don't shoot ourselves in the foot by trying to accommodate 1 or 2 vendors when it should be, just come in here just for pre-orders, which is a great idea. But then it might leave a bad taste in the mouth of people who are looking on to say, wow, that's Haymarket's farmer's market, So that's what I want us to consider. Even though it's a great idea to do it, I'm just hoping that we're not shooting ourselves in the foot by doing something halfway.
Joe, Bob?
Did you have a comment, Joe?
Chris had his hand up.
I was just going to say, ultimately, that's council's decision. If you guys don't...
I know everything. I know almost everything is council's decision, but what I'm asking for is just a discussion. Let me ask you personally, if you were in the town and you're coming out and you saw a farmer's market that had 1 booth set up every Sunday, would you be inclined to pull over with your family and come to check out that 1 booth?
I don't think that I would necessarily.
Exactly, and that's what I'm trying for us to discuss. And yes, I understand it's the council's decision, but I'm just trying to discuss it to see what it would look like.
So if there's no objection to having people here in the winter months, what I can do is I can reach out to all of our vendors who are currently with us. I can set a schedule on for example, when we do our holiday Christmas event, instead of having them there on Sunday, I can invite them to do the event. So I can set very specific days for December, January, February, and March, and then offer to them if they would like to stay on and be here. And I can put a very clear stipulation that with no fewer than 5 vendors, if there's 5 or less, we can't do it, if that is something that council would like to see. So that we do keep the integrity of the market going and the, visibility is there, the aesthetics of it, what have you.
I like that word, the integrity of the market. Does it make sense what I'm asking?
Yes, it does.
And that's it, the integrity of the market. Because I've heard comments of the other one that's, it's further in Gainesville, that people just drive by and they're like, no, it looks like it's not well organized because you just have one booth or 2. Thank God we've had pretty much consistency throughout the season with the vendors, especially the big truck, the fruit truck. But I think we need to give it more thought. That's just my opinion. I think we need to give it more thought. It's a great idea. The pickup is a phenomenal idea. We should entertain it. But what if somebody wants to set up a tent?
Yep, and right now, it's just the concept of, how about if we have a drop-off type of thing? So maybe we need to frame it a little bit more, come up with what our boundaries are in the sense of scheduling and timeframes, and also what other restrictions we would like to place on these vendors when they do come in.
I would just hate for someone to leave middle of November and said, man, I went to Haymarket Farmers Market and I can't believe there was one person there setting up. And that's what they walk away with.
Right.
Because one of the biggest complaints we get from the vendors themselves is, we don't advertise well enough for it. And I don't want to put any onus on us to have to try and advertise and make the people understand what we're doing here.
Right.
I'd prefer to make it just through word of mouth and signs of all the vendors that are around at that time. Wouldn't you agree, or?
If council's not opposed, since our last market day is 1 full week before our work session, if everyone is in agreement, can I work directly with Councilwoman Ramirez and Vice Mayor Pater to come to a decision of what would be best for the community, and then together they help staff move forward with the decision?
I think that's a great idea.
That's a good idea.
Okay.
A great idea.
So I'll work
Any
with.
objections?
No objection.
Okay.
Your directive is made by yourself.
I will work with them and we'll figure this out soon. Thank you.
Okay, anything else on that? Okay, we'll move on to the police department report. You have some questions, Councilwoman Ramirez?
Yes, I know that when this report was sent over, it was obviously before Halloween, so I was hoping that we could touch base on Halloween and see how well it went.
Yes, myself and Officer Joe came out last night along with my family members and drove through all the communities, making several sweeps at each of the community areas and engaging children and adults both there, handing out the Halloween candy from the cruisers and outside of the cruisers, interacting with the public. I think it was very well received. I'm not really sure how many pieces of candy we got out. I'm not going to get into the weeds on that. I would say about 1,000. And probably engaged about half that many children, quite frankly. It was a very good event for us and a very good outing for the police department.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing your family with us. I know that can be difficult to open up as a law enforcement family and share your family with the community you serve. So that was really special. And I just want to highlight how appreciative our neighborhood especially were. I know that I saw you twice in the night, and I saw Officer Coppage at least once. And I just wanted to see maybe open up a discussion about ensuring that we can have more officers for next year or for different types of community events like, the upcoming Christmas event or for 4th of July or things like that that are just really family and community focused. So I just wanted to open up and see if we wanted to engage in that conversation, maybe ask the chief to come back with some numbers and how we can make that happen.
So the idea would be to come to the future work session just with some recommended staffing options for each of these events?
I mean, I also want to hear from the council what they think about, just 2 officers or more, or, because, I personally received a bit of feedback that they would love to see more, but I'm just one of 7.
Do we want to go around the dais?
Go ahead.
No, go right ahead.
Go ahead. Ted, lead off.
Yeah, I think it's, would be nice to scope it out, see what we're talking about. Certainly for next year's budget, we can plug some numbers in and kind of work through that process. But for the short term, yeah, I mean, sit down and have a discussion at the next work session. That sounds like a plan to me.
Council's pleasure. I'm open for other comments other than Mr. Passanelli.
Well, I mean, when we constructed the budget last year, that type of staffing was anticipated in the overtime budget for all events. I mean, understanding that you hardly had a chance to get your feet wet yet, but I mean, the funding is there for the staffing, for additional staffing for those types of events and for the ancillary stuff that goes with it, like the candy and that. So, Chief's going to meet with the Finance Committee on Thursday as it is, and we'll address it at that point in time as well.
Yeah, and on that note, ancillary, like you were saying, candy, I heard that this came out of your pocket, the candy that you supplied?
Yes, sir. I didn't expect to be repaid for that.
I
just
think,
felt that it was a community outreach program, no more than devoting my time to it.
right, I think that's some of the advertising and facing expenses that the town should be covering. I think we could pull that out of his
We've typically
budget.
covered it in the past, yes.
So I would like you to,
We'll talk
claim
about
those
it on Thursday.
expenses, and we'll find a place where to pull it out of the budgets.
Yes, sir. Also, if I might, if this directive is given as far as to follow up, it would be nice to have some parameters of different things that the council's looking at. If you need to keep in mind that I'm not from Haymarket, and so there's different traditions and events that you may have here, like such as Haymarket Day. And I've already got in my 100-day plan to look at our community outreach program, and I have been doing that. But any information that you could throw back at me, that's something that I would need to put on my radar and then properly evaluate and decide what resources would be prudent to put forth towards that would be tremendous if you would do that. In other words, I don't want to miss anything.
Yep.
That's what I'm saying.
And I think the liaison kind of has a fair understanding of what our expectations are, right? Something you might
I
be able to
understand.
communicate?
Yes, sir, but back to Bob's point as far as the overtime is concerned, remember, we cut it back because of what we presume was improper management of the overtime.
But that was for other programs. There was still enough left in for this.
Yes,
That was
but-
factored into the
But
budget.
we have to wait and take into account what has been spent or what the chief will be spending from what we've allocated, which is 17,000, before we can tap into it. Because one of the things that you don't want to start taking money from the overtime has to do with, has it been allotted for court cases and all those other things for the operations? And as we look at that, then we can look at the finances to see if it's something that we need to increase for holidays, events like Haymarket Day, which is probably included, and Halloween.
Like I said, that was factored into the original. When we did the calculations, that was factored in, both the overtime and the events. So there should be a sufficient funding in there. And if there's not, we can always
Yeah,
move
and-
money around at a later point if it's a little bit off. But I recollect that we set it up that way when we did the budget.
But we didn't know what we were working with. We
Yeah.
didn't know what it could have been. So this cutback that we use for
No,
overtime.
I disagree with that. We didn't know what it was going to be based on
No,
averages
sir.
from the past.
Not the averages. The averages from the past had the calculation of overtime from the past was totally different. If you remembered, they were scheduled overtime, which is what
Which we
was
took out.
eliminated, and we took out.
Yeah, and I believe the way we factored the overtime this year accommodated for the regular overtime for things like court, as well as for the town events. I know we talked about that specifically during the budget work sessions. So I'm confident the budget covers it all. And as far as the ancillary costs, there's any number of places that they can be pulled from. So I'm comfortable with where we're at. I'm pretty comfortable that we've got enough funding for the rest of the fiscal year to pursue that type of overtime event staffing without impacting the budget at all.
And through monitoring and controlling the expenses, I'm sure you can keep an idea of what you're seeing in the forecast, and you can at least report back saying, I'm seeing this, I'm going to be short in this sense, you know, where can we adjust, and work with the financial people to come up with a rearrangement of the budget if needed. You have a question, Marshawn?
Just a comment, if that's okay. So Chief, I appreciate, the 100 days, once you do your audit, I think the consensus from the community and certainly from the dais is that the ability to participate in community events is very much a supported activity. What I would not want it to do is to have these, other than Haymarket Day, which I understand to be all hands on deck. The other events, I would see it at the officers' election. I would not want that to be a mandate that they come in there, but with some parameters, which is, if they want to work it and we have the budget, that what I would understand to be the premise into going into that, and if there's an interest in the future, so.
Fully understood, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think we need to scope it out. I think we need to scope out exactly what we're talking about, and then evaluate it against what we have. And if there needs to be adjustments, we make the adjustments.
Okay.
But I don't think we need a separate line item for that. I think it can be built into the existing line items.
Okay.
Unless Roberto has a different opinion.
You almost got out,
God, you
Roberto.
gave him the mic.
Yeah.
All right. So my opinion on it is that in the past, by keeping it in one line item, we've gotten into trouble of not being able to see what truly is work overtime versus community outreach. So the thought of maybe possibly having a separate line item for that, I would be for, just to as well be transparent as to why, because as well as when it comes to overtime too, that will be calculated on workers' comp. If we were going to be transparent about it, at least we know and there's knowledge as to why certain wages are at certain rates. As you know, the PDs are at a higher workers' comp rate. But I think, in my humble opinion, I think that council should probably figure out what events are, aside from our Haymarket Day, are the key events that would need all hands on deck versus a few officers here and there to assist Chief Seibert on his decision on how to come for this budget. I am more than happy to sit with him and kind of go through with it. I think Emily will probably be another good resource to bring in, as she handles a lot of the events as well currently, to help him assist with what events are key events for us, but also, yours input would matter.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to.
Go ahead, I'll let you go first.
I like the idea of staff working with the chief and then coming to the finance committee to kind of flesh everything out. And then if a discussion needs to be furthered by, like monies being allocated or not, obviously that would be a whole council discussion, but I do like the cooperative effort to ensure that everybody on staff, PD included, are on the same page and supportive of each other.
Yeah, and you can figure out also if this needs to happen at the financial level, or maybe we can start introducing it into the two-dimensional timesheets that we're putting together for tracking time that way. So we may not need to deal with financial at this point. It may be just as well to associate it in that two-dimensional timesheet that I've been kind of laying down for you guys to use. You had something, Chris?
One thing that I think would be beneficial for all of staff, if we get an idea of numbers, I mean, we can always provide a range, so if we were to provide 2 officers per event plus the one answering calls, are we talking, because like Councilman Schneider said, it's elective, so we kind of would like a ballpark number. Is it 2, is it 3, is it 4? How many officers are we talking about? So that way we can run the numbers instead of just running the whole gamut of everything.
I don't know if I'm personally comfortable dictating to the chief how many officers he should have on duty. I think that aside from saying, hey, we would like to see more presence, I think that it should really be his discretion as to how much staff he needs that day, if that makes sense. I mean, obviously, the two of them did a great job last night, so I don't want it to sound like they're not working their butts off and we aren't appreciative, because I loved what they did last night. I loved that they rotated, because in years past, I never got to see anybody but one officer, and it was normally a part-time officer that we didn't see for the rest of the month. So, you know, I like the way that they did it this year, and I don't want it to, I don't want this conversation to detract from that. I would just love to see more, maybe, you know, you guys not balancing it all, just in case if a call does come out, you know.
Roger that. Understood.
But if anybody else has numbers that they want to throw out, that's fine.
Marchant?
No, so this doesn't preclude the daily activities your officers are already doing. They're already out in the community, so that shouldn't be taken as that way. So the kids are developing it. I take this as there's consensus by the council to maximize participation at the point it's fiscally possible, and let chief figure out how to best manage that. So,
Yes, sir.
Thanks.
I mean, I see it as part of the chief's outreach plan. And he's working on his outreach plan, so he can integrate this into that, and we see where we stand.
Should be seamless, sir.
To be seamless. Excellent.
Okay, any other comments?
I do, since we have it open, I might as well.
Okay.
I'd like to hear your voice, chief, so I just wanted to say a couple of things. First of all, the house check, I really appreciate what you guys did. I noticed a lot of activity. It was really stepped up, and I think that's a service that we need to, I think, advertise a lot more. It's a real benefit for folks in this town. So
Totally agree with that.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
so thank you very much to you and the staff.
No worries.
I did notice quite a bit in my time here, foot patrols and bikes, and that's really good to see that stepping up, so that's wonderful. I wanted to give you guys a chance, you and Chris, to talk a little bit about the polar plunge, because while I was away, I kind of saw the email, but I haven't really focused on it, and I thought it might be a good idea for you guys to advertise it a little bit, perhaps. Just take a few minutes.
Town Manager Kuhn reached out to me about the Polar Plunge and the Torch Run, which obviously, you know, law enforcement takes a big part in the Torch Run every year, no matter where they're at in the country. They support that cause with Special Olympics. And Chris wanted to get a team together from the town of Haymarket and the police department, a joint team, to do the Polar Plunge in February, and then also take part in the Torch Run in June. Don't worry, Councilman Weir. You can buy your way out of going into the Potomac with a simple donation to the Special Olympics.
I just keep thinking of George Costanza and shrinkage.
Right. So yeah, we've decided to go ahead and do that, and I think Chris actually said today it's early goings, but right now we're at the top of the leaderboard as far as donations and getting a team together, getting organized for February. Also reached out, a friend of mine reached out to me from Warren County, who's heavily involved in it, and gave me some fundraising ideas that she's going to assist me with in getting that up and running here. And I think with the joint team between the town and the police department, we're going to have a good showing in both February and at the Torch Run. So very good project and very worthwhile putting some efforts into.
Great. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
That was my only question.
That's it
Yep.
for you? Okay, for me, want to recognize Citizens' Time, in which we did have a question about lock boxes for business.
Yes, sir.
Do you see a liability issue with that? Do you think that's kind of outside of what we should be doing for businesses?
No, I'll be glad to comment on that. And of course, with anything you do, there is liability. Sir, this is the way the world is today. What these knock boxes or lock boxes, whichever you would prefer to call them,
They're knocks. They're knocks.
knocks, is basically more aligned with the fire department. Obviously, usually when police show up at, say, an open door or a door left open or an alarm, usually the alarm is going off, so you have to have a key holder present to reset the alarm. Now, would it fasten the officer to be able to get in a free way, in other words, without having to break something or get in? Yes, it would, but more along the lines, it's with the fire department. When you have a report of smoke in the area or smoke in the building, then the fire department can use that lockbox for a quick entry, not having to wait on a key holder and go in and hopefully put the fire out or address the electrical issue or whatever's causing the smoke before it turns into a fire. So yes, there would be a use that police could use it for if they did find that business without an alarm, where they could lock the door for the property owner without the property owner having to drive whatever distance or get out of bed in the middle of the night. The liability side would be that the fact that there is a key there that everybody would know about, and those boxes are very secure. We had them actually at the courthouse where I used to work for the fire department at night. They're usually kept in a higher location that's not easily accessible to anybody passing by. So yes, there would be a liability issue with that. Not a high one, but there would be a liability issue with that. If it was a service that was needed or felt, I have really no objection to it. But yes, there is liability, but there is a cause for it as well.
Okay, I'll let you and the liaison discuss that out, and then he can bring it back to us with any type of recommendation.
Yeah, but just for the record, those police officers don't have keys to the Knox boxes. They're only for the fire department, correct? And there are only 2 companies in the entire country that makes Knox boxes. Actually, I think it dwindled down to one. One bought the other one. But this is a fire department issue based on the square footage of the building and the occupancy of the building that requires Knox boxes. And when they are purchased by the company, the business owner, their main keys put inside, and only the fire department has keys for it. So what was asked of by the resident, it is not something that the police department is responsible for or have access to. It is only through the fire department.
Does the county do that?
Prince William County Fire Department. And every vehicle has a copy of that key on it, that individuals are not even allowed to take it.
Okay, well, that might already tell us what direction that's going to go, but I'll let you two discuss it, and you can come back with recommendations if necessary. One other thing I want to highlight in here before we close up is I would like to congratulate Officer Chip Dragoon for his training certification for his bikes. Speaking of our foot patrol and bike patrol, it's great to see these guys get these certifications, because it does a lot more than just address riding the bike. There's a lot of other situations that get into the training of all this stuff. So from the dais, if you could congratulate Officer Chip Dragoon for us.
Absolutely will. It's a very inclusive school, one that I would not necessarily want to go through at this point in my life, but it is a very good school, and it really makes them use their craft well.
Mr. Mayor, will we direct the chief to become bike certified?
Thank you.
I'll let it die for lack of a second.
Okay, that's all I have. Anybody else? Okay, thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
We'll move on then. That closes up all the department reports. We can now go to the agenda items. First one on the list is the zoning text ordinance. Open for discussion.
I would like to first call attention to one document that was passed out prior to the meeting. Sorry for passing it out, not having it in the agenda, but these are some comments that came from Councilman Weir on the first page and then half of the second page, and then you'll see I've added some notes here on the bottom. So these are just some things that we have found over the past week of minor amendments or edits that we need to work on. Some, as you will see in my section, I am just kind of calling out that a couple items were modified. So, Councilman Weir, do you want to, aside from the formatting ones, would you like to start us off on 58.3.1, which was formerly 58.1.6, item C?
Martin, feel free to chime in on this, but when we were redoing a lot of the notification and review and sort of things, the question came up with respect to how we handle delinquent accounts. And although we had the language in place to allow for that, we never passed the resolution to enact it or to enable it or enact it. So by making this change and taking the prior language out and putting this language in, that covers us, correct?
That's correct, sir, and it would be at two stages of the process. It would be at the, prior to the initiation of any land use related application and the final land use approval. So they would have to show that they were current in all their taxes before they, when they file the initial application and then when the final land use approval is made.
Okay, and this isn't just a parrot of the state code, right?
That's right. It takes,
Now-
it makes it active. It takes the option that's provided by the state code and makes it actually operational.
Yeah, what we did was struck that type of language that you're referring and replaced it with this so that it's actually enacted and enabled.
Okay.
The next section is on the sidewalks. We did not, and I don't know how we missed this, but I guess it's because we were operating on two different tracks. We need to incorporate the language that we adopted for the stamped sidewalks and replace the language in the published text with what we've already pursued.
Emily, you provided us draft text on that already, didn't you?
I couldn't find it.
Okay.
I did, and that was in one of the, I think, work session documents that we passed out, so we will drop that in there to section 58-20.9.
Yeah, so you'll just amend this with the language you've already got. Okay.
Correct, and it's really only going to be item F, and it's going to read to the effect that it takes out the Belden brick paver and inserts the
Stamped
option
paver.
for stamped concrete.
The next one I noticed.
Also includes soldiering, right?
That
Yes.
is correct. It will still have the exact same design, soldier course with a herringbone pattern, red in color.
Does this also discuss the ADA design piece of it? Because I see we got multiple different styles out in our streetscape already. Some are concrete, some are, textured pavers.
So what it will do is it will contain, so item E, which is on the bottom of page 1, handicap ramps shall be provided in accordance with Virginia Department of Transportation standards or the most current ADA standards, whichever is more restrictive, and located at all street intersections or street and driveway crossing areas. So as this changes with the different standards and regulations, we have to accept what's current. So some of our developers, when they have to tear out sidewalk and put in new, they do have to put in what is current, not necessarily what matches the one across the street. So you'll get a little bit of change,
Okay, so
throughout the town.
no clause that says per our design standards or
you've
something
gotta
that
go
pulls it
It's
outside?
very restrictive on you
Okay.
have to meet their standards, and it's very regulated through VDOT and ADA standards, so we will have to keep that.
Okay, I just wanted to let people recognize that we do have,
Yes.
each corner seems to be a little bit different in some form or fashion, so.
Next thing on the list was I went through the performance standards to try and make sure that they matched up with the amended zoning, and I found one place where it didn't. So that was under 58212.2 for the hotels. So I just struck the section regarding 60-foot heights because it's no longer applicable. So you would just strike one and then renumber everything starting with one.
Okay.
Emily has some other concerns that I generally agree with. We need to add an inoperable vehicle section. She's going to work with the chief on that. We need to, it's been suggested that we change the language slightly on the single-family parking, where it's, if you had a sentence to second line on that, it says all parking for vehicles, recreational vehicles, and commercial vehicles. I think the intent is right, but the wording is wrong. It should be all parking for trailers, boats, recreational vehicles and commercial vehicles in a front yard. So we would just strike vehicles and replace it with trailers and boats, or trailers, boats.
But does that-
The rest of this looks like it's formatting.
Yes.
On that section, putting in all vehicles, I'm assuming that would include
That would
any type
include
of
personal cars and
broken
everything
down
else.
vehicles, right?
Yeah. And it wouldn't be an issue except for the 48 hours for unloading, so, I mean, if the way it reads, it's tailored to the 48 hours, so if we left it at all vehicles, then that would cover your personal car, and I don't think that's the intent, so, just to clarify what the
Well, I
intent
just
is.
don't, I want to be able to cover broken down vehicles.
Well, that's what she's doing in operable vehicles in the
Yes.
previous section, because that addresses that concern separate from this.
So I'm going to specifically work with Chief Seibert to determine a proper definition. It can kind of be a two-prong approach on a zoning violation, and then if he is able, based on his regulations and ordinances, to go after it in another manner. So we'll work together on that for an update.
I would also suggest that we adopt Emily's suggestion with regard to the BZA at 58.6.1, where it was left out inadvertently, and have those changes put together in the, have these changes put together in the final draft presentation next month for consideration and potentially adoption.
Is it okay if the other council members have comment, or?
Oh, I'm just getting mine out of the way.
Related to yours. Okay. Before I go on my diatribe, anybody else?
I do want to tap into the commercial vehicle that was just discussed.
Okay.
The definition of commercial vehicle here, it says any vehicle used for commercial purposes regardless of capacity, which displays advertising thereon, or which is licensed as a for-hire vehicle or any limousine, common or contract carrier. Commercial vehicles shall not be deemed to include any of the following: police, emergency, or school buses. Is this a clear definition of commercial vehicle, or my question is my truck a commercial vehicle?
So I think the short answer is yes. I think the longer question to council is, how do you guys want to handle the situations? And that this has arisen in other neighborhoods that have more strict HOAs, where a person who works for a certain contracting company or a company in general who provides them a take-home vehicle with advertising on it, whether it be a magnet that states the business, or it's a full-blown car-wrapped vehicle. We do have those instances where those types of commercial vehicles are their main driving vehicle, and they want to get a vehicle decal, they want to park it in their neighborhood, and certain areas in town, the HOA takes care of it, and for lack of a better word, polices it so that they cannot do that, and in other parts of town it is allowed. So we have run into an issue several years ago where this was the case, and the owner of the vehicle chose to park it on a public street that was Hunting Path Road, and therefore they got out of their HOA and were able to utilize public street. So this is something, thank you for bringing that up. This is something we should discuss on what a commercial vehicle in this regard should be defined as. And if we want to be that strict in all areas, again, several of the HOAs are strict and do take care of that. But again, that's something they're buying into a neighborhood with that knowledge.
It's a good way to get me off council.
Bob?
Yeah, I know you
I'm
want
going to
that.
probably annoy my HOA by saying this. The way I read this is with respect to the front yard. I'm assuming the property of the, on the property of the property owner. So if the vehicle is parked on a public street in front of the house, this ordinance does not apply, correct?
Explain that for me a little bit more.
So then, if that's the case, we just need to ensure that when I fix item 2 in my note section here, that it is very strictly defined and stated that it does not necessarily, that you could park in your driveway and be okay instead of just your front yard or in front of the house.
That's not what I'm saying, because that will get me in trouble with the HOA, because they don't want boats, trailers, commercial vehicles in the driveway. Mr. Krim, we do not control VDOT public roads, correct? In terms of parking of vehicles.
You don't necessarily want to control that under the zoning
Correct.
ordinance.
We could do it separately under a resolution, but
Correct.
I think to get around your problem and to get around the problem that some HOA people have raised over the years, and I've always kind of wondered what the enforceability of it is. If the HOA wants to restrict you from putting a commercial vehicle in your property, a wrapped vehicle, for example, you've signed covenants, blah blah blah, and you've made those, you've entered into those agreements as part of your purchase of the house. But since we don't control who or what is parked on VDOT roads, and I don't, short of asking VDOT to, like the county does, prohibit certain things, I don't see a problem with parking that type of vehicle on a public street. And again, Long Street Commons doesn't have them, because you've got private roads, I believe. But if I don't want to get into the business of enforcing a prohibition on wrapped work trucks that belong to somebody who lives in a house parked in front of their house on a public street. That goes against the libertarian part of me.
I think you can certainly, just for tonight's discussion, say that parking on public streets is not part of the zoning ordinance.
Okay.
And if it becomes an issue, you can address it through
A
appropriate.
later date?
Yeah, a
Okay.
police power ordinance.
Yeah, I remember 14 years ago, our HOA had described the commercial vehicle, but there was a van that was used for a painting contractor. And that was, I remember it was one of the things that we discussed with that, the owner of that vehicle.
I can remember a similar ridiculous argument that this body had a couple of years ago with respect to trailers. The code says trailers, period. And somebody wanted to amend it to trailers, pop-up campers, and whatever. And a trailer's a trailer's a trailer.
Well, again.
You hitch it, right?
Yeah, it has to be hitched.
Yeah, well, but they wanted subcategories of trailers to be
Oh, okay,
defined, and I'm like,
okay.
why define one and not, the 50 different types of trailers there are? So I don't want to get down in the weeds with this, I just want to make it nice and simple.
Okay. Martian, can I continue? I have a couple more points. Traffic impact analysis. Do we need to state who does it, or is it something that has to be done by VDOT? Or whichever authority it is that does TIA?
For everyone else, that's section 58-3.2. Give me 1 second to pull it up in the draft.
You're going to make me look, aren't you?
Section again, 58?
58-3.2, and that's going to be on page
35.
33, 30,
30,
I have 33.
33?
Under special uses, but it should be elsewhere, shouldn't it?
It's elsewhere in the
Yeah,
code,
yeah,
too,
I
but-
remember seeing it twice.
So, under this section, what we have done is there was, and this has kind of come up in our most recent discussions and lessons learned. So what we're saying here is that it is required, prepared by an engineer, surveyor, and I'm reading off of the PowerPoint section I dropped in. Prepared by an engineer, surveyor, or other accepted professional as deemed by the zoning administrator. So that would direct the approval of the professional to myself or whoever's the zoning administrator.
Okay. Personally, I think that's enough.
And so that everyone is clear, I just would like to go on real quick. It may be waived, the zoning administrator may waive this requirement. Either the waiver or the traffic study must be included at the time of submission. Number one, if the applicant feels that the traffic will not impose an adverse effect a waiver may be obtained. Proof of no adverse traffic must be provided either by an engineer, surveyor, or other accepted professional, or demonstrated through a map program such as Google Maps. We can maybe modify that. A narrative explaining the proof of no adverse traffic must accompany the waiver. The waiver may be accepted or rejected by the zoning administrator. All parts of the waiver must be complete at the time of submission.
Okay.
So my follow-up question, if I could,
Yeah.
just on that point. Over in rezonings, we generally reference the traffic impact analysis. Would we recommend carrying over the same language from,
It is in the rezoning as well, I believe.
same language? The only thing I found was number 10.
Let me look.
Page 49. Oh, no, it's something just to verify that it would make sense to carry on to both. On page 49,
49.
yeah, it talks about the cultural resources.
49, the actual page, or 49, the,
49 in this printout,
says traffic impact.
so.
Yes, I see exactly where you're talking. That is page 51 in the electronic, just
Okay.
the way it, with the title page numbers. Yes, I can better define and just go ahead and drop that same language
just
from
cut and
above.
paste and drop it
Yeah,
in.
just
Yes.
Okay.
consistency between the two.
Okay, can I continue?
Do you want to leave the waiver language in with the rezoning? I wouldn't.
Can we pause on this for a second? So the remaining lots, landing properties are gonna probably be small
No,
lots.
you're right, you're right. Okay, I can look at it.
And maybe an example, when we were working through that draft change, we thought of, at the time when Dr. Moon was moving offices, going into a pre-existing building, only doing interior modifications at the time, office medical was a special permit required, so that was one of those scenarios where, you know, a traffic impact analysis could have been done a little bit differently or may not have been required. So we tried to think of the different scenarios in that case.
Marshawn, just so everybody's aware, these particular sections of the code, we literally ash canned what was previously in there, and we have mixed and matched mostly from Prince William, but with Loudon, the best practices from both, where they overlap and everything, and tried to make this much more enforceable and actually delineate every step, because one of the problems that we had in the language that's currently present is it was not nearly detailed enough.
I think it allows for us to have a comprehensive review of the application, but allows the discretion, as long as it's consistently applied.
Yeah.
To do something different, so I agree.
Mr. Morris. Thank you. 58-9, fence, maximum 6 feet. Is that the current height?
That is correct.
Now, is there contradiction between this and the HOA?
Yes.
Specifically, which HOA or all HOAs?
I mean, like our HOA, I don't think it's 6 feet. Is 6 feet? You sure?
So what's
Your
current?
fence is 6 feet?
Yeah.
Yeah, 6 feet. It's taller than
Go to
me.
your house with a.
I'm gonna go measure it. I thought it was higher.
So-
You have to stop using that Jamaican tape measure.
I
Stop
thought it
using
was
the
higher.
metric system.
So currently, how the town is working through the guidelines in the ordinance, the way it is in the front of your house and anything in front of your front facade wall, you can have a shorter 4-foot fence, but as you go behind the front facade, meaning as you look at the house back, as you go back that way, you can increase to your 6 foot in height. So that would just carry through.
Maybe because
to
I'm on a
match.
hill. Maybe that hill that's there.
Did we not used to have 7 feet or 8 feet at one point in the commercial districts? Is that ringing a bell?
Not that I recall.
Still in there? Okay.
It's in there, yeah, I remember reading it.
I believe in one of the industrial, you can have a taller fence for screening purposes.
Which makes sense.
And they can also have
My last point is the reduction in height, in building heights, to 35 feet.
Yes.
How does this affect already approved plans?
Shouldn't.
Shouldn't.
It should not.
should-
So anything that has,
Been-
currently undergoing construction or anything, they are still proceeding, they're allowed to proceed, and then it becomes the non-conforming use that is defined in a section, one of the articles in here. But otherwise, we do not have any other applications that currently have that height.
But just for clarity,
Yes.
we have an SUP down at the fairgrounds for height, if I'm correct, right? Didn't he get an SUP for a hotel for?
Yeah, that's,
greater-
and that's grandfathered, correct?
It should be, I would think. Go ahead, Martin.
Right, so grandfathering is a subject that's gotten more and more complex over the years that I've been doing this, but one of the ways that you can grandfather a project is to get a significant affirmative governmental act, that's a technical term, so significant affirmative governmental act, SAGA for short, and then diligently pursue that approval. And if you do that, then you are vested in the right to build to that SAGA.
So the saga would be the approval and the vesting would be the bonding or escrow, whatever.
You have to have significant payouts of money or effort that you're actively pursuing this application. So it's going to be a bit of a subjective analysis at some point. If you haven't spent any money on your SUP in 10 years, then it's arguably dead. Yes, sir.
Well, don't we have a limitation of 5 years? Or am I
Well-
missing something?
I'd have to go back and read the language of what we
Right,
did.
yeah, I mean, I'm not sure which 5-year provision you're referring to. You can lose a vested right, you can lose grandfathering if it's not used for 2 years for a particular use. But, yeah, the statute was written by the builder's attorneys and not by local government attorneys.
Aren't they all?
I've run into it before, it's between 2 and the 5 years, but generally, they have to, generally, if and the saga comes into play, then that takes the question off the table. They would have had to have not done anything or built something else on the property
Yeah.
to preclude that, so.
And if you build something else on that location, then you essentially invalidate your SUP for that anyway, right?
Well, that's a great question.
If you have an SUP for a 6-story hotel and you build a 7-Eleven and then 4 years later decide you want to tear down the 7-Eleven and build a hotel on top of it, you can't do that, correct? Without going through the process again?
Oh, wow.
It's an expensive way to get around.
Well, I'm just, it's a ridiculous premise, but.
Yeah, hopefully that wouldn't happen, but if it did, I don't know of any case law directly on point, off the top of my head.
Well, to your point, if you have an SUP, can you still build something by right? I guess you could, right?
Yes, you
Yes.
can. I've seen that happen.
So,
That's what I'm saying, if you
And
build a
then
by
the
right
SUP
7-Eleven.
You could revoke the SUP because it's not being used and it's no longer compatible with your comprehensive plan. But, theoretically, it could be there forever because it is essentially it's a permission to make a permitted use, subject to certain conditions.
Which brings us back to the topic of, do we want to put a timetable or a time limit on SUPs for review? And we used to have that.
Typically, what you see in localities is it says that if the special use is not commenced within a set period of time, then the special use permit expires, and so it's individual to a permit. So if you have a large project that might require many years to build, you could have a longer period of time than something that is move-in ready.
Yeah.
Is it close?
interesting.
I think that's a good idea, Bob.
Which one?
You talk so much, Just having a time limit when
I-
SUPs are approved.
I absolutely agree that we need to be a little more diligent on that. Unfortunately, we haven't had the opportunity, we haven't granted an SUP this year, have we?
We haven't, but we're just finding out about SUPs that were granted in 2018.
Well, I knew about those, but there's nothing I can do about that.
I
so.
understand.
They're
but if-
grandfathered, so you would have to go through a saga to change, right?
But if we had time limits on
I don't
it,
even want to think about the trouble that would cause.
I
Presently.
mean, moving forward, we can put time limits.
and that's what I'm
but-
saying, just for this.
Moving forward, yes.
Right.
And I think you did put 5, because as a citizen, I complained saying that that can cross over to comp plan reviews.
Yeah.
So I wanted to shrink that down, but you ignored me on that one, so.
May not have been me that ignored you.
A couple of follow-up questions. Emily, notifications, and I'm sorry I didn't get to these two earlier. For special except, I know state we have to do the notifications, but for special exceptions, are we doing property postings? Are we doing any other notification provisions?
So right now, we meet the state code of what we're required to do. If there is additional notification processes that the town council would like in place, I would ask and I would request that we put it in writing in the ordinance.
So, for instance, all the signs we see up for all the planning commission and board public hearings, do we want to consider a similar provision, posting the property? I think we've done it
I
sometimes.
think I put that in here, didn't I?
I thought I read it.
Yeah, I thought I
I'm
read
pretty-
that too.
I know it's a requirement in Prince William County, and I know I stripped the language from Prince William on that, and
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it's in here.
Wasn't meant to be a gotcha, I just thought of it while I was,
No, it took me a minute
Okay.
to get where you were
Can
going,
we-
but I'm pretty sure that language is in here.
I'm pretty sure I read it.
Before we jump much further, can we actually jump back real quick to height and area regulations just for a quick second? In the industrial area, it still is allowing for structures up to 50 feet. Is that something that the council would like to maintain, or is that something that should be modified?
I thought we
Did we-
dropped that
Down
at
to
the PC
35 is,
level.
I don't think we ever discussed the industrial.
Yeah, I don't
We could
remember
have.
seeing,
My notes show we did.
I don't remember seeing that, but I do need to understand what we shrunk the industrial level down to. I don't have that map at hand.
The industrial did not change.
It's on
None-
it's on the last page.
Currently,
So
none
that
of the,
means-
currently, none of the zoning, no zoning has changed on the zoning map. It is all still there. The
Yeah.
only thing that changed is in your ordinance draft, you will have a sign map. The sign map has changed.
We don't have
Yeah,
anything
so-
over 50, we don't have anything over 35 feet in the I-1 as it is anyway,
Century
do we?
Century Stairs over.
Century Stairs, maybe?
Maybe,
I mean, it'd be close.
Exclusive of any towers.
But still, you also have all of Blueberries in there as an industrial, since that hasn't been readdressed on the site map, right?
I mean, I can live with
So,
35.
you know, who
I
knows
can
if
live
they
with
want to
35,
extend
40, or 45.
Blueberry up another four stories.
Marchant, your thoughts? I don't know.
I think we would need to be higher than 35.
I mean, I'm fine with leaving it at 50. I mean, the I-1, I'm not all that worried about. It's set so far back from the road.
We're not removing data centers.
The only worry I have with the I-1 is we do, like I said, have the Leeberry is part of the I-1 zoning. And that's all shopping center at this
But
point.
it's set back 50 yards from the road.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
In theory, Sheets, good point. In theory, Sheets could tear down today and go up to 50 feet.
McDonald's could tear down today.
So maybe for now, as a
Blueberry could
placeholder.
too.
Well, now's the time to change it.
The
Yes, I think we should
gasoline
be
fire
consistent.
could wreck it all.
I mean, do we want to compromise at 45?
I'd say,
Huh?
35.
give it 35?
What's the intent?
35 is my
Give, give that an opportunity to expand though with SUP privileges, because you took out the SUP privileges for B2, right? So for I-1, if the SUPs are still in there, that still gives them the option
How
to
about I work
come
with
as
Emily on it?
a
We
case by case.
determine it, we put a base of 35 and then put the SUP provisions in that we used to have.
If you're
Yeah,
behind
exactly.
Leaders, excuse me, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry, that makes more sense.
Is that,
So long as Century Stair and all the other properties front
Yeah.
Washington Street and our gateway, I think we would want to keep it lower.
so that's in the I-1?
Correct.
Correct. And then
I'll
one-
work on the draft amendment.
And then another item, just to call to attention, 2 items. Cover regulations, the I-1 has, it shall not exceed 85%.
Right.
And then I want to jump back to a comment on Bob's section here, page 79, he has recommended for B1, it shall not exceed 75%. So one of the discussion items we had is with some of these redeveloping properties in the core, did we want to allow them to be able to go up to 80 or 85% of the coverage in order to get more out of their property?
I think we talked about this at the work session, and I thought
Yeah.
this was your thing.
Yeah,
your
my
comment. and I-
compromise was 80, but I think what we did is said we'll just shoot it back to what Prince William County
Yeah,
had.
Prince William County is set at 75 in both districts, and I think that's where we
That's
left the discussion at the work session, so that's why I threw that in there.
That includes parking?
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
So a quarter of the property will have to be green space.
Marchand?
I would think in the B2, that would be appropriate, given the two properties that are zone B2. I think for the B1, I would agree with Emily, is that if we want this walking town and people to build to the street, we need to be able to park it, because we're not changing our parking ordinance.
You want to walk it back to 80?
I would think for our core, if we want compact dense development.
Like I said at the work session, I'm fine at 80 or 75, I don't care.
Yeah, well, my concern as a citizen when I was up there was for B2 area. I wouldn't
Necessarily
concerned
about
about the B1.
B1? I mean, B1, I'm not that concerned about, to be honest with you. It's the B2 that I was concerned about. I can live with 85, 80, or 75, whatever you guys want.
Emily, what would you recommend?
I would recommend 85 for the B1 strictly on the premises that a lot of these smaller parcels, when they come in to redevelop, they're already pretty landlocked and parking will be an issue.
In that case, I withdraw my proposed amendment of 5812.5. Just cross it out.
So then jumping back to the I-1 though, are we okay with the I-1, section 58-14.5, being shall not exceed 85%?
I'm fine with that.
Okay, so only the B2 will read at 75.
Correct.
Do we have TC in this?
We do have TC, and TC give me
It's
1
50,
second.
I think, isn't it?
TC coverage regulations, maximum structure building coverage shall not exceed 75% of the total lot area, except for the adaptive uses of existing structures. Total impervious coverage of a lot shall not exceed 85.
Where is that?
That is on, if you're looking electronically, that's going to be page 83. If you're looking at your paper copy, it's page 78.
58-13.
Section 58-11.5.
Right.
Okay.
So that stays that way? 75, 85?
Maximum structure built shall not exceed 75, except for adaptive use. Total impervious. Yeah, okay.
We don't have a,
But is that consistent?
So that would be
Hold on.
consistent in
Emily,
the
can I make
sense that the TC and the B1s could not exceed 85. And then your B2 cannot exceed 75. And
Well,
then
do we
your
want the TC to be more in line with the B2 or the B1? I would say B2.
I would think
The more denser
B-
areas.
based on the parcels that are TC, I would think B1 because it goes back to your point of if you want these to be walkable
Okay.
and we're not changing the parking standard, then you want it to be maximum coverage they can get.
Okay.
Okay, so
I'm not going to
to
argue it.
clarify, B1 is not to exceed 85, TC is to remain as is, B2 shall not exceed 75, and I1 shall not exceed 85. And those, real quick note on this, as Marchant's gonna Vanna White it for us, those three he's pointing to, I made the mistake of putting purple stickies on there, they are not B2, that's
They're
only
TC.
TC. I just used the wrong color sticky.
Right. But all three are TC?
Yes.
That is correct. That is the current Mariah's Vineyard tasting room. It is the current M&M exteriors, and it is the AC Watts house on the corner of Washington and St. Paul.
Is that all we got in TC?
That is correct. Those are the only three parcels in TC.
So the winery right now is 85?
That is correct.
Wow.
I mean, if you And it is.
I mean, there's,
And one of the modifications they did that was referenced in this ordinance update is they went ahead and they used permeable pavers and
Right.
permeable concrete to significantly be able to reuse the property. Okay,
And even now, someone would say it's probably, doesn't have enough parking.
that's right.
yeah.
Now you,
I'll try to make my list quick. So we already talked about notifications, that's an improvement, I appreciate that. Off-street parking, Emily, we talked last week, so I guess we flipped it. You're allowed to park off-site within 750 feet, but we've eliminated the shared parking provision on-site.
Yes, and to
Okay.
better explain that, I just want to say, that would be in the instance, for example, the old bank building has a purchased parking lot in another location, so in the current, or the new ordinance, that would mean that it has to be within 750 feet for that off-site parking location supplied for the building.
It's almost a half a mile, right?
That went up from 600. I did want to call that out for council. It was originally 600, it is now 750.
So while Councilman Weir's out of the room, because he'll have an opinion on this, the rationale for eliminating the shared parking provision?
So we went off of a couple items. In the old ordinance, it does reference a manual that we have not kept up the addition, and ultimately, it just was not something that was being utilized or overly discussed with current developers coming in. It was more of, they were going to provide parking for the development they were doing, even if it's multi-use. They were not going out and seeking parking agreements from other parcel owners and paying them / leasing for parking.
the definition of multi-use is shared between commercial, not like a multi-use property where you're shifting between residential and business and stuff like that, right?
So if a multi-use residential commercial property were to come in, there could be shared parking amongst that, but that's going to be heavily based on the special use permit that they would apply for under this new proposed ordinance. Currently, how it works, for example, the Winterham, they have the shared parking amongst the different uses. But the Bloom building, the old Cupcake Heaven building, they have shared parking amongst their commercial uses. Same with the Foster's building.
So we still would allow through an SUP process the opportunity to share if they can demonstrate. Okay. I'm just going back to the parking issue with these smaller lots. We're going to be challenged. I would say there's some arguments that Winterham, if that final phase is built, we're probably going to have a problem.
Big challenge.
It was originally meant as sort of a tool to address our unique sort of condition and situation, but if the consensus, we're not using it, and we can still do it on a case-by-case basis, and that's fine. Thank you.
Could be time for a municipal parking lot.
Yes.
If I might,
I conveniently asked this question while you're out of the room.
now I'm
It's okay.
listening. I think everybody's well aware of my issues with the shared parking ordinance, and I think one of the things we have to bear in mind is that when the shared parking ordinance was first done back in, it was actually before 2000, before I served the first time, it did have with it sort of a matrix of how shared parking would work, whether you were a restaurant or a commercial thing. And they tried to implement it with Winterham, and it failed miserably because your shared parking matrix would change. If you had X number of square feet in the original site plan dedicated to restaurant and X square feet dedicated to retail use, where the restaurant would pick up the retail use after the retail use closed at 5 or 6 or whatever, and then it ended up being more restaurants than retail, and there wasn't enough parking, and they were taking, there wasn't enough parking then for the people that lived in the condos upstairs. It never worked. It was destined to fail. It still fails, and you're right, if and when Winterham ever builds the next bay, we're going to be seeing it fail miserably in front of us. But
And then on top of that, trying to police it.
Yeah, and then trying to police it and getting involved in the parking disputes, you know. Somebody lives in the condo and somebody that's in the restaurant is parked in their condo spot.
The only other example I can remember is the Iceplex, and then they wound up having to buy parking. So, okay, thank you for walking me through that. Period of validity, we talked about it a little bit, but last week we talked about zoning permits and certificates of appropriateness having expiration dates, 1 year. Do we want to include that for the zoning permit side?
If you want to write the language, I'll be more than happy to stick it in there. I could not figure out how to do it.
Okay.
I would suggest talking to Martin about that.
Okay. Martin, this was, we used to have a provision in certificate of appropriateness was after 1 year, that would expire. We have had some issues where folks, getting COAs and not acting upon them and perpetuating situations, so, when we go, I was gonna take some suggested revisions to the ARB this month and have them shared and then come back, but one was to reinstate the 1 year,
Period, yeah, the time limit
Yeah, time limit.
on action under the COA, and I think you need to, have language there about, diligently pursuing it, because some things might take more than a year.
Gotcha.
And I think you also might want to have a provision for renewal at the ARB level so the person wouldn't have to file a whole new application.
Okay.
with
Extension, you mean? Like
An extension, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Can you guys work with Emily for a draft on that section so I don't have to take it up?
On the zoning side, for the zoning section as well?
I mean,
Sure.
I think it should be part of the zoning text as well, or should we just do it in the?
No, it needs to be in the zoning
Yeah,
text.
that's what I thought.
It
because
was
that's
in
where
the
your
guidelines. but
That's where the
problem-
enabling is, right?
Right.
Okay.
I'm sorry, in the zoning ordinance, but do you have it under the old and historic overlay article, or do you have it for permits, zoning permits generally?
COAs only originate under the historic area, so it would have to be there.
Okay, but let's say Emily's zoning permit for a particular use, what happens if that's not acted on in a year? Do we still want to?
That's different than a COA.
That's not a COA, though.
I understand, I'm sorry, I'm not clear to that.
Okay.
Both are the same situation. You have zoning permits for any zoning use.
Yeah.
You have certificates of appropriateness for the historic district. Do we want the provision in both situations where any
I
zoning
would say
permit?
no.
Okay.
I draw a bright line distinction between the two.
So the zoning ordinance permit, they come in and they ask for a brewery, let's say. And 2 years later, they still.
They still haven't done it? Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any issues with that? Okay, if our comp plan changes, if the zoning changes, we would still want to have some, if the use isn't permitted anymore.
Well, that's, I think, where you get into the issue of the saga.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I meant to have some preliminary suggested changes. I've not had those, but generally the topics I'd like to discuss with the ARB is the boundary description, I still think assumes the map that you are going to adopt at a later date, just the main streets. So we probably need to default back to the previous language. We'll add the provision about the time limit. 45 days, the suggestion was we go to a longer time for the
Yeah, I left
appeal.
that because I wasn't sure where we left that at the work session. I thought you guys said 45 days was fine.
Okay. And then definition, I had some suggestions. Right now, it talks about the bulletin 15, and by that standard, nothing in the town would be under that provision. And then some formatting suggestions that I will put those together, consult with Emily, and present those to the ARB, and then bring
You'll
those
have
back.
all these adaptations done by the work session at the end of the
Correct.
month?
Yes,
Okay.
I will. And then, sorry.
Can you provide your comments sooner rather than later? So
Yes.
we can work on the formatting
Yes, ma'am. I apologize.
This has been a year, and in
Understood,
the
and
works
it's
for
a
me,
great, I
so
think it's a great
I'm
revision.
growing
Just a
weary
couple
of it.
things that, a couple, we're still showing blank As and Bs and Cs, so I'll help with the formatting stuff as well. Emily, you already talked about administrative approvals. We'll take care of that when we address the map. Board membership, we had declined adding a business owner. We'll leave that the way it is. Curb and gutter and sidewalks, I brought that up before, but I couldn't remember. Is that in subdivision? Where would we, the whole Fayette Street?
That's in subdivisions.
Okay,
It's in subdivisions and.
For new stuff, yeah.
that they do,
They're required.
okay, so the
Remember,
slide
we changed it a couple of years back to where, like if you go into Green Hill where the sidewalks are only on one side, it was changed in the subdivision ordinance a number of years ago to require the sidewalks on both
So
sides
since
of the
these
street.
Fayette Street since these Fayette Street units have gone in, we've changed the subdivision ordinance?
Let me
Since
direct you.
the,
Oh, hold on,
the
Emily has a comment.
subdivision ordinance was changed subsequent to, I think I've got my timeline right, subsequent to the approval of the rezoning for Sherwood Forest, because when Sherwood Forest was rezoned, there was a proffer in there for the developer of Sherwood Forest to widen Fayette from Washington Street to the throat of Sherwood Forest, and to provide curb and gutter along the road. And then somewhere along the line, somebody dropped the ball and never pursued the proffer when they built.
So,
So that's, and subsequent to the approval of Sherwood Forest is when the sidewalk changes were made in the subdivision ordinance, because somebody, I believe in Green Hill Crossing, was complaining about it.
I'm sorry, Emily? Thanks, Bob.
I was just going to direct you to section 58-3.15, performance guarantees, item 2. The following performance guarantees shall be required as applicable to the site: A, any street, curb, gutter, sidewalk, bicycle trail, drainage, or sewage system, water line, or any improvements dedicated for public use. So that is in there to help protect us for further development on properties that it would be required.
Okay. Hotel, for instance, hotel didn't put a sidewalk on the light. Is that because it wasn't a requirement, or is it their discretion
On Payne?
On
Sorry,
Payne.
I always confuse those two.
That was, I will have to pull the exact notes. That was a very in-depth back and forth conversation with that developer, and I think it came down to how VDOT classified the road.
If we could just double check, I think the intent would be any new development in town that fronts a public street
Has to have a sidewalk.
needs to have curb and gutter and sidewalk.
I think I made that argument with the hotel and it fell on deaf ears.
And we may need to possibly look back at how that happened and redefine public street.
Okay.
Exactly how VDOT would define it, not primary, secondary, tertiary, not in that regard, but public street.
One thing I see that left is, most developments do it anyway, just as I think the Van Meter project did it. They're doing it internal to the fairgrounds. And so I think a lot of times we've not had to require it, but there's instances where it would have been appropriate. We just probably need to make sure it's clear that that's the expectation. So thank you, Emily, for looking at that. I did notice we were switching around to ZTAs. We're only allowing zoning text amendments by the council or recommendation of the planning commission. I noticed
No,
we took
that
out
shouldn't be. No.
individual, not
What-
rezonings, text amendments, individual.
What section are you looking at? That should be,
Page 58 point,
I saw it and I just lost it. I apologize.
58-4.1.
PA4
I don't think it's a bad thing. I thought.
I
that was
do.
That individual,
58.4 point what?
Under amendments. No. Where's that?
Where'd it go? 58-4.2.
58 dash.
4.2.
Amendments to amendments per. Zoning text amendments, zoning map amendments,
Through approval of that council.
amendments generally.
Sorry, everyone. Thank you for indulging this. So
Conflict of interest, notice requirements.
it's right at the beginning of the amendments chapter.
4.6 is zoning text amendments may be proposed by resolution of Haymarket Town Council or by resolution of the Planning Commission.
58-4.
Does the statute provide for?
It doesn't prohibit citizen-initiated zoning
Application.
text amendments or application for zoning text amendments, but I think that essentially, anybody can petition at any time for anything. So if somebody wants to have a zoning text amendment, they can just file a request with the town council, and you can either take it up or not.
Okay. This is, I found it, 58-4-.6. Is that what we're all looking at? Okay. I remember that being a question, do we want individual folks to be able to pay and petition directly?
What do we currently have? I don't know.
I think we do. I think we replicate what the zoning map amendments allow, which is resolution by the council, planning commission, or petition by the property owner.
I'm fine with adding petition by the property owner, or by well, but that's sort of unclear. The property owner of what?
By application of the property owner for his property, an agent or, anyway. Okay, just something I caught. I don't know if there was a general, I'm fine either way. I think to Martin's point, anyone can come and ask the council, can you initiate it anyway? And they wouldn't have to pay the fee. So, that's all I have. Thank you, everybody.
Nothing on 50-year?
What's that? I prefer leaving it as is, unless somebody wants to change it.
I've looked at it so many times.
Clear, it says the property owner for his property.
For a zoning map amendment,
Mhm.
but not for a zoning text amendment.
Okay, yeah, I can live with leaving it that way. That's fine.
Hey, thank you for the council and staff's indulgence. That's all I have for now.
Where did we get that 50-year for the historical buildings?
So it says newer than 1950? Is that what you're thinking about?
Older than 50?
I think that the idea was, and correct me if I'm wrong, was at the time it was initially,
Correct. The time it
at
was
the time
initially
that the,
adopted,
correct.
and then backdating it to the point, backdating it to roughly the point in time at which it was adopted would have been effective, if that makes sense.
Correct. So the time, it should have, right now it says 50 years or older, and just every year, obviously, buildings get older. But if I've understood, the intent at the time was to take a timetable, anything before a certain date was meant to be designated that. And so
With
just rather than
fully
having
worded.
this rolling 50 years old, it's just from this point in time, or it's labeled specifically in the plan. So, which is fine.
I'm good.
Joe, you got a question?
You all set?
Yes, thank you very much.
Oh, boy, here we go. Oh.
I'm going to make it easy. So just lay out a basic timeline to where we're going to approve this. What your action,
I'll have a motion for that.
no,
So-
well, the actions that you're looking to do up until approval, because I'm sure you're looking for feedback, right, from other folks?
Yes, so,
Marcia.
just to be fully transparent, so I am working on these updates and edits as well as formatting. So everyone knows I've started teleworking on Wednesdays to solely focus on comp plan, but for this next month, I can transition back to the zoning text amendment with the goal of having a complete draft ready for final look at and approval at the December meeting, as long as council's ready.
So
This would be available, November 29th, I believe, our work session is. That would be available and ready for your review. Any final discussion at that meeting, and then we'd have one quick week to make any minor edits. Minor, I'm hoping at that point it's just you forgot a period here or there.
So when are you looking for any comments on this, rather than go through piece by piece tonight?
By the end of the week.
End of the week?
Ideally by the end of the week, and if you have comments, I think it would be very beneficial to schedule a meeting so we can, not necessarily whole council, but
Yeah.
schedule a meeting one-on-one so that we can sit down and go through your comments and I can hear you out. We can take the time to look at the sections and really understand what's being requested or what was proposed.
Okey dokey. I just want to say that I think overall it's very comprehensive, and I think you guys did a good job on it. So I'll supply any comments that I have to you.
Okay.
'Cause
So Joe, for you, since it's at the end of the week, that means you got to get it done by the end of tonight.
No,
Okay.
tomorrow.
Tomorrow morning? You
No,
wanna head
tomorrow
out?
afternoon.
Tomorrow afternoon.
I think this next week with the ARB, I'll meet with Emily, we'll get it before the ARB, get their blessing, and then we'll have it ready before the work session.
In that case, Mr. Mayor, I would move we defer further consideration until the November work session and move on.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion second. Any last discussion beforehand? The only question I have is, any of these new modifications, is there a requirement for public announcement, or have we satisfied the legalities.
I believe you've satisfied the legalities.
Okay.
I'd love
So-
to read another.
Oh, that's a good thing. Can you send the, your PowerPoint, can you send that over?
Yes, I can. I'll send it to all of council.
Okay, great, thanks.
Okay. Well, we got a motion and a second on the table. Let's go for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Now we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is consideration for the resolution for the first quarter budget amendment.
Yeah, I gotta vote something.
It's up for discussion. Roberto, if you want to do a quick brief on your pointers.
I think we discussed it in the work session. In fact, I met with Councilman Ramirez. I believe I spoke to Mr. Morris about some of the staff report explanations. I don't know if you guys have any specific questions still. I know Councilman Pasanel, you were not here at the work session, so I'm not sure if you were, I know I did give you the staff report, but I don't know if you have any specific questions on that.
Question, no, I'm only kidding. No, I've read it, we talked about it before I left, and I reviewed it, and I'm ready to move forward.
Okay, so no numbers have changed to highlight, so we're good, right?
No numbers have changed. Everything's explained as it was discussed.
Mr. Mayor, I would move adoption of Resolution 2021-014 fiscal year 2021-22 budget amendment.
Second.
Okay, got a motion and a second. We don't need to read this out for the record, do we? No. Clerk? Okay,
Please,
thank
no.
you. Thank you.
You should, sir, for transparency.
Okay, last chance for discussion? And I'm assuming this one will be a roll call, so.
Yes.
Weir,
Aye.
Casanello,
Aye.
Schneider,
Aye.
Ramirez,
Yes.
Morris,
Yes.
Okay, resolution passes. Man, why couldn't the ZTA be this quick, huh?
Because you guys had to ask questions.
Okay, we got the the Shop Small event. I was hoping the Vice Mayor would be here for this one, but I guess, who's going to head this one up? Is that you, Chris?
Yes, I can. The only addition that I do have to this is, as you guys remember, when we did the grants in the past, we had to go through Prince William County IDA. So just if council is willing to move forward with this, I would just ask that you authorize me to execute a contract with IDA, similar to what we did for the CARES Act, just to be able to allow the grants.
That is fine with me. Everybody else, any objections? Okay. Now, I know Councilwoman Ramirez, you had something that you wanted to promote with this Shop Small? Didn't you have something? No?
I don't believe I have anything for the Shop Small. I mean, I'm happy to help Emily and Vice Mayor Pater or, Chris with everything. See what kind of needs they might have. I'm happy to
I think I would maybe just quickly ask council if everyone's aware of what Shop Small, Shop Local is and what our goal is that we're trying to accomplish, maybe to help spread the word in our community. But as Chris kind of put on the memo here, Shop Small, Shop Local is a passport style event that we're going around right now. We're requesting the businesses to join us. It's a thing for them. It does not require anything on their part to do this. They are being charged anything. So basically what it is if a customer comes in and purchases a good product, service, anything that they decide deems it worthy of a stamp that they have visited their business, then they get a stamp on their passport. They visit 8 of our in-town businesses that are participating. Then they can turn it in and win a free t-shirt. And then they're also entered in for a grand prize drawing. So we'll have 3 grand prizes up to $500 each. So that'll be awarded at the December 11th. That'll be awarded at the December 11th Christmas and holiday event. You don't have to be present to win, so really, right now, if you go to any of our local businesses, it's just really pertinent that we get the message out there that we're trying to do shop small, shop local. It's gonna run for 3 weeks. If they are able, if you guys pass tonight this motion, what that allows us to do is use a little bit more of our CARES Act funding for the purpose and provide small grants to those participating businesses. But as Chris was mentioning, they are required to fill out that application, and we do have certain steps that we have to go through for auditing purposes. But our goal is just bring the community together and try to encourage our residents, but the outside community to shop small, shop local. And it'll start November 20th.
Okay. A quick comment just on this technical difficulty we're having with this mic. This is what we discussed last week about upgrading our sound system. So keep that in mind as we go through forward with that. You have a question, Chris?
Yes, I got 2 points.
Yep.
So this is funded totally from CARES Act and ARPA? Okay. And do we have any statistics that support this statement, companies that are negatively affected by COVID-19? Do we have any statistics that supports that statement?
So how we would address it is in the application they would fill out for participating in the Shop Small event. It's actually got questions in there that specifically ask them how were you negatively affected by COVID-19 in the application to participate in the Shop Small event. So yes, we will have a self-filled out application from the business owner or manager that indicates they're negatively affected.
So we would place the onus on this, on them to explain how they were affected.
And this is the same way we did the vouchers, the same way we did the previous business grants, the same way we've done the other items that we've already gotten good audits from Prince William County team. And that's why we're doing the same thing again.
I'm just asking because I remembered when we went around to put out signs, almost every one of the business said they didn't even need the sign because they weren't affected. So I just want to balance it out. If we make a statement that says business that negatively been affected by COVID-19.
So a lot of businesses don't realize even the extra expense of sanitizing or cleaning more is considered a negative effect. So I think in the beginning, when we were first really getting going, they didn't know what it fully encompassed. So the actual application has several things to include janitorial or sanitizing costs, maybe labor shortage is another one. People don't realize that is a negative effect. So there's several things in there that we specifically line out. So all they need to do is if they're affected by one, they need to circle it. And if it's something else that we didn't include in there, they can add it in the line below.
Thank you, sir.
You said you had 2 points.
Yeah, 2. I asked where the money was coming from and
Okay.
if it's negative. Are you listening?
Yeah,
Oh.
apparently.
Bob?
Just a comment. I mean, it's a great idea, but I'm just concerned that we can pull this off, and more to the point that the businesses can pull this off in this really compressed time frame.
We mean compressed time frame. So it launches in 2 weeks, right?
It launches in 2 weeks.
And it ends before December 11th?
And then you're going to pay. I just.
So,
How many weeks?
so we give them 3 weeks. So last year when we did this event, we gave them 2 weeks, maybe it was 1 week. And we had quite a few people turn in their passports for the prizes this
To
year.
visit 8 shops?
So, and also let me maybe give a small disclaimer. Last year, we were going back into a new shutdown, but we very hyper locally went into a very big shutdown because we had to close our offices. And so that was right when this went out, but we still had people participate. We still got the knowledge out there. We worked with the police department to set up a drop box over on their side of the office in the police lobby. So this year, we're going to handle it a little differently, better advertisement, more clear directions on where to drop off, things of that sort. So they have 1 week longer this year to do it.
How do we measure it?
As far as participants compared to 17,500.
So we can, this year, take into consideration how many passports are returned. Some people choose to do multiple passports for multiple entries for the giveaways, so we can definitely take that into consideration. You'll see some passports have more than 8 stamps, but I would say that looking at the quantitative data that we received last year, each one of the passports is going to show that they visited at a minimum of 8 of our in-town businesses in order to complete their booklet and turn it in. So we can definitely crunch some numbers. Roberto loves doing that, so I can work with him on how we can justify the spending and how many business trips it generated in order to just fill out their passports.
And
Real quick, we don't know dollars spent. They don't have to attach receipts. We're working on the honor system, but we can still count business visits.
so really, there's really no purchase required.
It is, you are required to make a purchase, and again, it's the honesty system of we're requesting that the person at the business stamping it is being honest that that person made a purchase or a visit that they deemed necessary. Maybe they signed a contract or something. And we are asking that you not visit one business more than twice. Because you get coffee, twice in 3 weeks, I think that's justifiable.
Right. So how many businesses are participating, do you know?
So far, we have roughly 10, but again, we have only just started asking in the last about 48 hours, so hopefully we'll have a good number. Last year, we had roughly a dozen. There's new businesses this year who already said, yes, sign me up. So,
Some of the hope as well is, if somebody gets Starbucks coffee on a regular basis, hopefully because of this Shop Small event, maybe they'll stop at Cupcake Heaven or Haymarket Coffee, so then they'll get there too at Cupcake Heaven, too at Haymarket Coffee. It gets them to really see what's around the town, which may change their daily habits. Instead of going to Starbucks, maybe they want to stay with the local shop. So that's one of those, it's the qualitative that you can't really, enumerate, but hopefully those businesses can and, identify new customers. So that's the hope. This is one of those things where the town can help try and get more people in the door that hadn't been there before.
Oh, I'm sorry, can I ask for one clarification? Do you have to be a town resident to participate?
you do not.
Okay, thank you.
It is open to anybody. We will have thousands of passports printed. What we do is we hand them out to all the participating businesses, so you can pick one up at any time. We can discuss mailing one out to every residence. They're available here at Town Hall, but we'll spread the word on how you can pick them up.
Okay, anybody else with comments, questions? Do I have any type of motion to move forward?
I move to set a not-to-exceed amount of $17,500 from CARES Act and ARPA funds for the purpose of the Town of Haymarket Shop Small event.
Well, second.
Okay, got a motion and second. All in favor?
Is that roll call?
Aye.
Do you want roll call?
Yeah. you do.
Yeah. It's an
Roll call,
expenditure.
please.
Aye.
Yes.
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 Do you guys mind also having a motion that either you or I can sign that agreement with Prince William County IDA, the extension of the grant program?
So directed without objection.
No objections? So directed. Okay. That pretty much does it for our agenda items. Now we go to council member time. We'll start off on the left of the dais. Councilman Morris.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just want to thank the staff and the police department for the huge effort for Haymarket Day. I think, I know Jake is not here, and we talked to him separately, but Sergeant Davis did a great job in running the team, recruiting members from Prince William County PD and from the Sheriff's Office. And Chief, you get to see firsthand just how we operated. So it was good to have you on board to watch that. And for the staff, Emily, and for the rest of the team, you guys just rocked it. It was a really good event. I think 5 hours was enough. So I think it was good. That's it, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Councilwoman Ramirez.
I want to kind of piggyback off Haymarket Day. I loved how all of us, council, staff, PD, we all saw firsthand just what a great community we have, and helping everybody break down their tents in the rain and get packed away in the car and all sorts of stuff. So thank you, especially to the staff and to the PD. Your efforts were noted and appreciated. I also do want to say I loved reading in the police report that you guys are walking kids from the bus stops home and stuff. I think that that's wonderful. That's awesome. I want that to continue, and I'm sure it will, and we just have such a great team. I did want to say that I attended, along with the mayor, the RELI webinar. It was titled Marijuana Laws, What Happened and What Local Governments Need to Know. So if anybody has any questions or want to hear our takeaways from that we would be happy to discuss that. Learned quite a lot.
You guys got samples?
It was not gifted to us, and so no.
Sorry, no Jamaican strains are allowed. It's got to be American grown.
Yep. It has to be from Virginia. Let's see. I want to say that in the last month I've been knocking on doors around town, obviously, and I want to say that our community is amazing, and the zoning text amendments that we're adhering to or changing, people appreciate. They appreciate the fact that we want to keep this town small, that we want to keep it walkable and safe, and they love our community. So I just want to say, yay team, we're doing it right. And then I want to urge everyone to go out and vote tomorrow. Vote how you see fit and exercise your right. That's it.
Councilman Schneider?
Ditto on comments about the police and staff and everyone else that participated. You guys did a great job. I appreciate it. I enjoy working with you guys. I would challenge the other HOAs represented by this council to step up. Long Street carried on the long tradition, but would challenge each of you to encourage your HOAs to find a way to engage.
Do they have HOAs than other?
Look at 18th Century doesn't, but we have some upcoming events. It'd be great to have a more representation of the HOAs.
So in other words, you're shaming 80% of the community.
No, your words, not mine, but encouraged nonetheless. To have a quick debrief, Emily, if it's still possible for us to be able to debrief at some point on Haymarket Day. Overall, 99% positive feedback to get some folks just making some suggestions on some things for next year. And was it like Christmas? We already got 350 days, something like that, to start planning again. So if there's an opportunity to debrief, let us know, and I'll try to get some folks either there or get their suggestions sent to you. Also, we don't have to necessarily do this now, but I did have a question about how we set or how we put items on the work session agenda, and did want to see if we can talk about the truck again in the next work session.
The what?
The truck, trying to get a truck for our
maintenance? Yes.
the maintenance, some sort of vehicle. I think we'd also talked about maybe putting a hitch on one of the police vehicles to tow the trailer. Just another way with which to carry trash rather than using a person's individual vehicle. So I know Loudoun County has the surplus auctions for vehicles, so if we can, if the finance committee could.
We are actively pursuing it.
Okay, well, if we can get updated the work session about that, and just generally, Mayor, would you, if we have ideas, you just want us to contact you directly, work with staff, how would you like us to put work session agenda items together?
Work with the town clerk. She's kind of the holder of it.
Okay.
Like I said, anything that doesn't get on an agenda that is published takes two of you to add it, and it takes I can add it if I feel it's necessary without any of you guys, so suck it.
But can you remove
Sorry
it?
to be,
But
just being
if
ridiculous.
two
huh?
council members add it, can you remove it?
No, I think 2 council members is all it takes to add it.
Maybe you need to tell the
There's no
former mayor that.
rejections.
Well, we could always change the council rules of
Parliamentary,
procedure.
if you want to go for parliamentary procedures.
No.
So we
Okay.
digress, but those are my comments for this evening. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to suggest to Marchand to read the council rules of procedure. That would tell you what you could do with adding to the agenda, but that's, I won't say that.
Is that the agenda on the spot or prior to the?
Prior to.
Okay. Thank you for the friendly
But you
reminder.
can also do amendments. Anyway, congrats on the playground staff, team. Really looks great. Super job. I've already thanked the PD for the house checks. Guys are stepping up with the patrols on foot, on bikes, so I think it's been very much noticed all over the town. Again, I'll just echo Councilwoman Ramirez's comment about voting for tomorrow. If you haven't done so, please do. It's your right, your voice. I was in Normandy. It was a very special time for me. I will be with my dad next week, so I won't be around on Veterans Day. He's 97, a World War II vet. I had the opportunity to go to Omaha and Utah Beach, and it was very moving. And I'm going to take the time to celebrate Veterans Day and acknowledge his efforts as well as others. So I would suggest that we all do that and keep that in their minds. It's 11/11/11. We know why. 11th hour of the 11th day, is it?
The 11th hour, the 11th day, of the 11th month.
Exactly. Set aside for us to remember our veterans. So I would make that suggestion that we keep that in our thoughts, and I thank you for your efforts. That's it, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Councilman Ware.
2 things. If staff could publish something on the website, getting a lot of complaints about yard waste bagged or unbagged not being picked up, and some other bulky items. If we just reach out and post something on the website or send out a blast email or whatever we do to get some information out to the residents, kind of point them in the right direction with regard to our waste management contract. And then my favorite subject, sidewalks. Crosswalks. As most of you are aware, I think I copied you on all of this. I've been sort of badgering VDOT for the last several months about getting our crosswalks done, and they keep moving the goalposts, and the latest update I got was last Wednesday. Thank you for your message. Our operation team will review this signal for repairs and adjustments. This is something else. The latest update on the crosswalk is that the subcontractor will begin the work when air temperature meets the manufacturer requirements. Well, the day they said that, they were paving on I-66. The day after they were doing that, they paved the parking lot over in the townhouses. I saw them paving on 66 this afternoon, but starting tomorrow and for the next week or two, it's going to be too cold. So after a year, when the temperature got up to 100 degrees in June and July, VDOT did not complete the project, and now they're claiming they're waiting for the air temperature to be high. I want everybody to understand my frustration with this, and I'm at my end with it. I think we as a council need to do something to get this squared away. It has been a year since they quote unquote had to delay our paving because the paving season ran out last November at about this time. And if that means we have to put some pressure onto the state, so be it. But I'm going to state publicly, I think this entire project has been mismanaged by VDOT from the beginning, both in terms of scope, management of the contractors, damage, repairs, and obviously the crosswalk situation. That's all I got.
Okay, thank you, Bob. And me, I'm not going to parrot what everybody said. I do want to emphasize the voting, though. Tomorrow is voting day. Please get out and vote and voice your opinion. My mayor's walk is not this weekend, but the following weekend, so don't get confused because we're starting off so early in the month with our meeting. Other than that, that's about all I have to say. So we'll move on to the next item.
Mr. Mayor, I move that the council convene in a closed session to discuss the following. As permitted by Virginia Code Section 2.23711A1, a personnel matter involving assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, disciplining, or resignation of specific public officers, appointees, or employees of the town, specifically dealing with the town manager, and as permitted by Virginia Code Section 2.23711A3, a matter involving acquisition of real property for public purposes, specifically involving the property at 14600 Washington Street, where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the town's bargaining position.
Okay, you got a motion and a second. Vote, please.
Aye.
Is it a?
It's just an acclamation vote.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, no opposed. Okay, time to open up our open session again. I need an attestation.
Mr. Mayor, I move the council certify that in the closed session just concluded, nothing was discussed except the matter or matters specifically identified in the motion to convene in closed session and lawfully permitted to be discussed in a closed session under the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act as cited in that motion.
Second.
Got a motion and second. Roll call, please. Roll
Aye.
call vote, please.
Aye.
Casanello?
Aye.
Snyder?
Yes.
Ramirez?
Yes.
Morris?
Yes.
Yes.
Morrison.
Oh.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I was writing.
Okay.
You don't get a vote anymore.
Okay, I guess next is
What am I supposed to say?
Move to adjourn.
move to adjourn.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye. Gave her the opportunity.
Gave you the opportunity.
Thank you, Martin.
Yes, sir.
Stop saying.